Welcome back, everybody. This is continuation from our beginner guide for Don't Starve Together episode, going from day 15, where we continue on talking about how to kind of get yourself started in the world of Don't Starve Together. In our previous episodes, we kind of went over a few recipes, some simple recipes to kind of get you through autumn. Today, we're going to be talking about a few different things. We're going to be talking a little bit about deer clops, which is a boss that's going to be coming about. How to go and fight spiders, maybe possibly making a few more fridges, and collecting some bunny traps. Other than that, there's been a few changes to Don't Starve Together. I also want to go over something real fast before getting too far into the tutorial. I do stream on Twitch every single day, 3:30 till 6:30 Eastern. Then I stream again 10:30 to 1 o'clock in the morning. I also stream on the weekends as well every day. So every day I do stream. So I try to make these YouTube videos as often as I can, but they usually come on my spare time when I have a few moments to do so. And luckily, Kiri and I are now able to step into the world and help you guys continue hopefully surviving. And one other thing I want to always mention about Don't Starve Together is if you are dying during this tutorial or in your own worlds, never give up. The bonus about Don't Starve Together is you kind of learn more things as you go along. So I've had a few people ask questions of, if I die a lot, is that a problem? It's not a problem at all. Just continue trying to do your best. That's all that really matters. Other than that, let's get into the tutorial and continue where we left off. So there hasn't been any added mods that I've done. However, Don't Starve Together has had a few updates, and that's kind of why we had it await as well too. Don't Starve Together Clay Entertainment has went into the beta and now is out of the beta with further updates. If you go to your settings tab, you're now going to have a texture streaming option as well, kind of replaced or moved up the lag compensation. I still suggest using texture streaming on if you're able to, if your hardware supports it. And once again, going back to the whole netbook mode situation, if you're running on a low-end laptop or PC, enabling netbook mode will make your PC run a lot better, and also possibly a little bit smoother as well too. But let's get into day 15. So we talked about making meatballs as before. Remember, if you got to take yourself one meat, doesn't matter what it is, could be even a morsel, and make sure that it's inside of your fridge if you can. Have your fridge open, and you want to make sure your crock pots are placed around it as we showed you before. Hit your crock pot, hold shift, one click, and then triple click in order to make yourself a meatball. So it's one meat of any kind and 3 filler. Keep in mind the filler cannot be certain items, but focus on, we won't get that too much into that right now. So I want you to focus on 1 meat and 3 berries if you can. At least for now anyways. When ice becomes, super big when we get into wintertime, then we're going to obviously have a lot more ice on our hands and be able to collect more and more and more of it. But being in autumn right now, we have berries that are going to be spoiling very soon, so let's go use that instead. Using the mod Show Me, as I kind of didn't really have a chance to go over this before, if you hover over certain things, for example, it'll say spoils in X amount of days. So you can tell that in 8 days, these items are currently going to spoil. If you take the ice out of the fridge and you put it in your hand, it's going to spoil in 2.8 days. Unfortunately, the Show Me mod doesn't necessarily show you how long until it's going to spoil while it's in the fridge, but it will take a very, very long time. If not, I don't even know if it does spoil while it's in the fridge. So, I mean, I can't necessarily answer that question right now, but I will try to get back to you on that. So today we're gonna start setting up an external base, and this is going to be known as our boss base. On day 30, which we're obviously on only day 16 right now, on day 30, we're going to actually be getting attacked by a boss that's going to come and find us. And this boss is known as the deer clops. You might have heard about the deer clops, or maybe have seen photos of the deer clops, but the deer clops is out to get you during winter. And the objective for Don't Starve Together's deer clops, aka the winter boss, is to try to smash basically a bunch of your bases up, as well try to kill you at the same time. So in order to prevent that from happening, or hope that it doesn't get to your main base, we are actually going to start making another base. And keep in mind, this doesn't necessarily need to be super nice or have some, all the stuff that we have, crock pots and stuff, but all you really need to have, and what I would suggest making, is a simple fire pit. Not a campfire, because campfires are only temporary. They only last until the flame burns out. But you want to make yourself a fire pit. and you want to get yourself a chest. And the reason why I suggest both of these things are because when the Deerclops is close, you're going to need a few things in your inventory in order to fight it. I won't really go too far into the Deerclops situation right now because we are really far away from it. We're still 14 days, and that's going to take us a while before we get there anyways. So I don't want to go too much into the conversation about the Deerclops, but I just want to get you prepared. As we're walking through, you might see things which look like little lizard guys. These are known as grass geckos. Grass geckos can be found across Don't Starve Together, and they're extremely useful. They're very hard to catch, which I don't suggest even catching them if you could, but walking near them will scare them enough to drop a few pieces of grass. They're excellent sources of grass, especially in the winter. Now, some people prefer not to have grass geckos, which there are mods to avoid that. However, if you do have them enabled, when you have grass in your base, for example, grass that you previously planted and fertilized, eventually your grass will not wither, but will also turn into a grass gecko, depending on how often you pick it. So something to know that, maybe put a pen around your grass, because eventually it's going to turn into grass geckos and they're going to run away. Kind of a cool little feature that Clay kind of added in to make it interesting. Kind of gets people away from not necessarily mega basing, but keeps them interested in, not just having a simple farm. Now, twigs obviously won't turn into twig monsters or anything like that, so twigs are always okay. And same with trees. Now, the only thing, obviously, as we mentioned before, is trees, the more you chop, the more you have the chances of spawning a tree guardian, so just be leery about that. But overall, grass geckos are cool, and I would suggest making sure that you put a little fence around your grass. I'm not going to do it right now, just because, obviously, we don't necessarily have, we have a lot of resources around us, so if you notice that you're basing in a biome that has a ton of grass in it, for example, with all the beefaloes and stuff, you might not necessarily need to have penned in grass tufts and stuff like that, but just kind of an idea if you want to make your base look a little bit nicer when the grass geckos decide to pop out. So we have our rocks that we need. Probably should get a little bit more, but for now I'm not going to do that. We have our rocks that we need, and once again, it's two pieces of wood and 12 rocks, and that's going to make us our fire pit. Now, we're obviously not going to want to be basing next to our base when this Deerclop shows up. So I'm going to actually choose a spot that almost has nothing near it. Something maybe further away, almost a screen. You always want to make sure that you're at least a screen away. For example, if I am over here next to my base, even though I can't see my base, the Deerclops will still spawn in on my structures that are near me, because it's close enough to the base so you don't want it to be able to even see your base or even get to your base at all. So instead, I'm going to pick the furthest area, still, within reach of my base, just in case any emergencies happen, and I'm going to place down my fire pit. So let's go ahead and let's place it over here. Now, you could obviously place this as further away as you want, but just in case, obviously, if I have to run back home, get some armor for any reason, we're going to want to make sure that we have resources available to us if so. So we have our fire pit. Next up, I want to make sure that we make our little chest. So let's get out our axe and chop a little bit of our trees. And once we have enough wood to do so, I'm going to put down a chest. Now, inside of the chest, it really depends on what you want to put inside of there. But for me, I would suggest putting some extra things that could help you kill the Deerclops. For example, you want to make sure that you have some armor. You want to make sure that you might have an extra spear. And if you have enough to do so, maybe put in some cactus or some green caps, but we're going to talk about that when the time comes. So as of right now, just focus on making the chest, and we'll kind of get to that route maybe when we get down to day 25 or something. So as of right now, just get the wood that you need, and then we'll make the chest and leave it be. So this will be our second little base area. You can also have these for different occasions as well too. Keep in mind, the Deerclops is not the only seasonal boss that is there to kill you. The Bearger will do the same as well too, and the same with the Antlion. But once again, we won't talk about that until the time comes. So now you have your second base. We can worry about getting a few more things. So next up, we're going to be focusing on spider hunting and bunny hunting. And we're going to kind of show you how that goes in the morning. Once we have our miner hat on, let's continue our adventure out and see if we can go back to our base real quick, drop off some resources that we no longer need, and potentially maybe get ourselves a little bit of extra armor, which we might need because of this fight. And we're going to show you a cool little feature that Wendy now has after the Abigail rework. Before, Wendy had a few options with Abigail. I don't know if you guys are playing Wendy, if you're still playing Wilson, the same character that I am, but Wendy now has the ability to control Abigail in a much cooler sense, so we're going to go ahead and show that off. I'm also going to show you how to do it solo if you need to as well too. So first you want to make sure that you have a lot of twigs, boom, which we do, and a lot of grass, boom, which you do. Before spider hunting, you can do it two separate ways. We could either attack the spiders, or we can just leave them be and just use a separate method, which I usually suggest for beginners. So as I mentioned before, you always want to make sure that you pre-make a lot of things in your inventory as well too. Some things to always have pre-made are the campfire, and I know that this is a little bit far ahead because we're not even close to summertime, but if you have the niter available, grab niter, grab a little bit of grass, and highlight over the endothermic fire pit, which is your basic summertime fire that'll keep you cold, and click on it. Now you have a regular campfire and you have a regular endothermic fire pre-made. This will help you in the future, and you might not even think about it, but there's going to be times when you're running around and it's super duper duper hot out, and you wish that you would have pre-made this. So now we have it. We don't have to worry about holding any more niter in our inventory, and we're going to continue on to go see if we can find out where some spiders are. So before you go spider hunting, a few things you want to make sure that you have. Armor, which we do. You want to make sure that you have maybe a log suit here or there, which we don't necessarily have a lot of logs on us right now, so we're not going to worry about that. And perhaps a little bit of healing. So in order to get yourself a little bit of healing early game, there's something that we want to get you kind of, you know, into the mood of making early game, but you don't necessarily need to have that, and that is a bird cage. And bird cages will give you the best thing that you need for better ingredients, which are eggs. Feeding meat to a bird will drop an egg and continue, you know, unlocking different recipes in the crock pot. However, because we're kind of continuing the beginner tutorial, I don't necessarily think that we need to go that route just yet. But if the time comes that we do need a lot of healing, I have other alternatives. So we'll worry about that when the time comes. And maybe when we're out there near the swamps, we can stop by and try to grab a few reeds. So on the map, if you press M, you can see little spiders, obviously different areas. That doesn't mean that those are the spiders walking around. What that indicates is that there's spider eggs over there. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to see if we can get ourselves some spiders. So before we leave, we're going to make ourselves a few things. We're going to make ourselves a few traps. So make yourself, you know, as many as you think you need, but never make too much, and always leave yourself at least with like a handful of grass. I would say an average of maybe 10 grass and 10 twigs. That way, if you accidentally don't have enough to make yourself a torch, you're not walking around in pure darkness. So today we're gonna have four traps, and along the way you're gonna notice things which are little rabbit holes, and you can sense that walking up to the rabbit is not going to be the easiest way of catching them, obviously. So you can sense that I'm not going to be able to go up there and hit it with a spear very easily. So there are ways to do it, but you know, it's too much of a hassle. So grab your trap, go over top of the hole, and sometimes you can go like this and set it in front, but that's not necessarily where you want it to be. You want it to almost be right on top. And if you kind of take your mouse and just see where it says set trap, you should be able to place it right over top. And there you go. There's also another mod that you can get, which is called Quick Drop mod. I usually suggest this mod a lot because it works really easy and you don't have to wait for the time to do that, and you can just right click on there. So a good mod to also have as well too. However, if you don't use the mod, once again, you hold the trap, wait for the indication to say set trap to show up. Might take you a few seconds, and there you go. And now it's over top. Might not look like it, but it is. I'm going to obviously replace that a little bit better. So this is not, you know, where you're going to be hunting for spiders, but this is a good enough resource to get you a little bit of meat and a few morsels if and when the bunnies run back home. And sometimes they're going to get into the house easy, and sometimes they're just going to get caught by the trap. But we'll leave those there because even when you're not near them, bunnies will still spawn and run out of there, and you'll have enough time. You'll have enough time to walk back home, and perhaps you might catch a bunny or two. So let those traps do the work by themselves, because they will. And now that it's dusk, it's time to hunt some spiders.
Thanks again for watching this video. See you in the next one.